What's going on, trainers and Digidestined? Rival right here and welcome back to the channel. Now, growing up in the 90s and 2000s, there is a high likelihood you watched either or both of Digimon and Pokemon. Whether you were introduced through the games, the anime, or a film that had you save the world from a digi-disaster as the threat from the net met the digital masters, Pokemon and Digimon have carved their own paths in history over the last 25 years. The franchises on the surface seem to share a very common path. Something that resulted in a lot of comparisons, to the point that one was basically referred to as a copy of another. But as we dive further into the similarities and differences between Pokemon and its clone, we really start to see how these two franchises are not two sides of the same coin. It's time to explore how these two beloved franchises were seen to be one and the same, but have actually taken distinct paths with key differences that define each other's success and love by their fans as a whole. Here is Pokemon vs Digimon. Now, would you be surprised to find out that collecting a bunch of bugs is why we have Pokemon as a series now? Okay, that's a bit of a generalization, but Satoshi Tajiri, the creative mind behind Pokemon, first envisioned the series back in 1990. Large in part thanks to the concept behind the link cables for the Game Boy. These encouraged games to connect with each other. He wanted to create a game that incorporated an interest he had with collecting bugs as a young child with the technology of the Game Boy. And thus, with years of development, Pokemon became a reality in February 1996. The series was not expected to reach the heights it eventually would. See, the Game Boy was at the end of its life cycle, and Nintendo weren't entirely sure about the concept, but trusted Tajiri enough to let him run with it. And it's a good job they did, because it very much exploded very quickly, establishing itself as a big brand for Nintendo. Its success would lead to the anime series debuting in April 1997, with countless toys, game concepts, mangas, you name it. Pokemon became the dominant brand as a media franchise. Now, Digimon was originally inspired and based off the Digital Monsters pet handheld from Wiz and Bandai. Tamagotchis were very popular in the mid-90s. They sold a ridiculous amount of handheld digital pets. The producers behind it, however, believed that it fit more of a female perspective than a male perspective, and felt they needed something different to get a male audience. And thus the decision was made to create a handheld pet that fit more of a male audience. And in 1997, Digital Monster was created. This had Tamagotchi aspects intertwined, but it also featured the ability to battle. As this took off, more content and merchandise was created for the series. In 1999, the Digimon World game was released in Japan, and this really helped accelerate the series going forward. Its success led to an anime series debuting in March 1999 of that year. Digimon really took off thanks to the creation of the anime. Fitting into a rapidly growing market for anime in the West, the series gained a lot of traction that helped create the franchise that now exists. The market Digimon entered, however, was very different than the market that Pokemon had entered. This is because Digimon had entered a market that Pokemon was already establishing itself as the top brand in. See, Pokemon was really taking off both in Japan and globally. So therefore Digimon entered a market that had a competitor. Thus it ended up having a lot of comparisons, even being referred to as a full-on clone of Pokemon. First, let's look at the similarities that Pokemon and Digimon have. Both Pokemon and Digimon fit into the same concept of creature-like combat with companions you class as friends. The bond between your Pokemon and Digimon can help improve their ability to fight or progress. The concept is very much the main start of the comparisons between Pokemon and Digimon. Fitting into the same category while coming out around the same time, amplify the idea that one was a clone of the other. Another base concept that both share that features very heavily across both franchises is the idea of evolution in both. Pokemon can evolve via leveling up or certain conditions being met. In the anime, this isn't exactly fully clear. What's to say Ash's Charmeleon is level 36 at the point it evolves? But I digress. Digimon can digi-evolve in order to become stronger and more powerful versions of their base. The idea of evolution creates a concept of progression and development for trainers, or Digidestined. These two main comparisons help amplify why they are compared so much in the beginning. The problem with this is that it's very much a general surface level look. The idea of evolving to become better and being monsters you form bonds with is a very basic entry level comparison these two have together. The actual reality is there is a lot of differences that Pokemon has from Digimon, especially when you look at those surface level ideas in more detail. Digi-evolving revolves more around specific conditions and bonds with their partner. Digimon can revert to an original form after digivolving, unlike in Pokemon. While there are some Pokemon that evolve through friendship, evolution is usually through level up and is irreversible. While both have the same idea of multiple different paths of evolution, for example, Eevee can evolve into many different types of Pokemon, this does not apply for every Pokemon. Whereas Digimon, there are multiple different routes that can be taken for everyone. Sometimes this can be incredibly destructive with digivolving, occurring in a dangerous manner through recklessness or loneliness or despair. It takes a surface level topic such as evolution, but uses them completely differently in execution. Pokemon explores a lot of themes and ideas. To give a few examples, in A Poached Ego explores the concept of a poacher named Rico who captures a lot of Pokemon at once. This is quite a common thing to see in the world where poachers exist for rare animals to sell at a high price. One of the best Pokemon episodes is without a doubt One Journey Ends and Another Begins. This is centered around the perceived passing of a Stoutland, who is a close friend of Ash's eventual Litten. The story is an incredibly sad one and a look at a topic that Pokemon traditionally does not look at. When the series was created by Satoshi Tajiri, he focused on making Pokemon fainting instead of dying. He personally felt like this was more age appropriate and didn't want to associate the concept of losing with dying. But the concept of death still exists within places like Lavender Town. Instances like this do exist in the Pokemon world, anime-wise or gaming-wise, where a tough topic is explored, but the ultimate goal of the main character tends to be to become the best trainer in the world and become the champion. This overlaying arc allows Pokemon to have its moments of focus on serious topics, but allows the general anime to stay generally light-hearted. As Digimon is more focused on the bond of the Digidestined and their partners, it allows for topics to be explored in much more detail than Pokemon can. Digimon actively explores the dangers of technology and virtual reality as well as so many other topics. The series that best explores so many of these topics is without a doubt Digimon Tamers, which is the third season of the anime, and for a lot of people would definitely stick in their minds because of its ending, which is very sad in nature, and really explores the concepts of nature, reality, and existentialism. The Digimon, instead of generally existing in the digital world, would actively arrive in the real world, and the series ends with them being forced to go back to the digital world in order to save both worlds. A fact kept as a secret from the main cast until the end, and revealed by Henry's father, because without a doubt the kids in the series would have fought against the idea of losing their partners. The themes in the series, while similar on the surface, are definitely explored more deeper in Digimon than in Pokemon. For many years, Digimon was seen to be a Pokemon clone. In fact, some might still think that. A Pokemon clone is essentially any franchise created that shares some similarities to Pokemon. Due to its domination in the market, it's very easy to say that any creature-based franchise that involves training, battling, or development can be compared to Pokemon. Let's give a quick example and look at the franchise Dinosaur King. Both feature some similar concepts of growing monsters. Obviously, in Dinosaur King, it's a focus on dinosaurs. I mean, with that name, it's not going to be rabbits, is it? There's an English intro to Dinosaur King that's very similar to a Pokemon intro, and both involve battling. That is a very basic level comparison, but with some surface level comparisons, you could say that Dinosaur King is a Pokemon clone. And this is the exact same with Digimon. But Digimon, unlike Dinosaur King and other series, which have a lot of similarities to Pokemon, had something very unfortunate that meant it was closely compared to Pokemon a lot. And that unfortunately is timing. Digimon as a franchise began in 1997. Gaining popularity in the late 90s, its rise coincided with Pokemon's immense rise as a franchise. When Digimon's anime made its debut in the United States, it came out on August 14th, 1999. Pokemon's anime made its debut in the United States on September 8th, 1998. Just less than a year after Pokemon's debut as a series, another came about that had some similarities and had a similar target audience. This naturally led to a lot of comparisons between the series, with Digimon becoming a Pokemon clone. While these comparisons can exist and there is some similarities on the surface level, the differences become very apparent when you look at the overall tone of Digimon compared to Pokemon. Digimon tackles a lot of topics revolving around technology and virtual reality. Multiple instances help tackle the issue of virtual reality and escapism, such as episodes like Home Away from Home, which came out in the first season of Digimon, where Tai and Koromon arrived back in the real world thinking lots of time had passed, as they had been in the digital world for weeks. But the reality was that while they were in the digital world for weeks, basically no time had passed in the real world. Even how they handle evolution can be very different in action. Digimon explores the serious dangers of recklessness in evolution with situations such as Skull Greymon, which is born from the recklessness of the main protagonist as they attempted to digivolve into its ultimate form, and led to a digi-evolution that could not differentiate between friend or foe, wrecking everything in its path until it lost power, something that really struck a chord with one of our main protagonists. While both franchises fall in the same general category of creature-based combat, with some general surface level similarities with evolution and capturing themes, the tones of Pokemon and Digimon could not be further apart. A serious focus on technology and its effects encased Digimon's entire concept. Pokemon generally tends to stay light-hearted, with the exception of some episodes that certainly do touch on serious topics. It's difficult to say whether or not Digimon was hurt by being called a Pokemon clone. Pokemon's domination within the same general category is very apparent no matter what series or idea came along. Digimon has certainly carved its own place in history despite these comparisons. Pokemon's dominating factors have made it a difficult place to compete. But this certainly does not mean that Digimon is not successful. It just means Pokemon has a place in the market where everything is compared to it. As a series and general idea, Digimon has more in common with Tamagotchi than it does with Pokemon, and rightfully so as it's seemingly based on it. Digimon in its own right should be highlighted for its successes and themes. It's earned its place in history and still manages to thrive in a market where one has reigned supreme. Thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure to like and subscribe as it really helps out my channel. What topic would you like me to cover next? Make sure to comment down below. Let me know your experiences with both Pokemon and Digimon. I grew up following both, and I'd love to hear everyone else's opinion. Make sure to follow my Twitter, although I don't know if that's the right thing to do now after the disaster that it's had in the last few weeks. But still, see you next time, guys.